the busy days of life, perhaps you've often asked yourself, why are we so tired? Why do sorrows and wounds in our hearts cling to us, making our shoulders heavy? Life is inherently short. A human life passes as swiftly as a fleeting cloud. Yet sometimes we let our hearts get stuck in things that aren't worth it. Today, I invite you to sit with me. Take a deep breath to relax your shoulders, release your burdens, and listen to a gentle message. Practice living lightly, keeping a calm mind, and learning to forget unhappy things so that inner peace can bloom in every moment. In the teachings of the Buddha, everything in this world is impermanent. Joy comes, then sorrow, union, then separation. Holding on to what has passed is like clutching a withered flower. It only makes the heart heavier. A person who truly knows how to live is one who can look deeply into life, smile at changes, and choose to keep their mind serene amidst the storms. Like a still lake reflecting the clear blue sky, a peaceful heart also reflects the beauty of life, even amidst countless disturbances. Perhaps you are going through a difficult time. Perhaps there are still unhealed wounds in your heart, memories that keep you awake many nights. But please don't forget that you don't need to carry all of that throughout your life. We can absolutely choose a different way of living, more lightly, more letting go, so our minds can rest. Just sit down, close your eyes, and practice mindful breathing. With just one moment of returning to yourself, you will see that peace has always been there, never far away. The person who knows how to forget unhappy things is not unfeeling, but rather one who understands the value of present tranquility. They know that the past cannot be changed, the future has not yet arrived, and only this very moment is truly precious. And in this moment, when we choose to live lightly, when we allow our minds to be calm, the simplest happiness will naturally blossom like a small flower in the vast garden of life. Therefore, in the upcoming journey of this video, I invite you to open your heart and listen with your soul, so that every word, every idea becomes a cool, refreshing stream, washing away worries. Allow yourself the opportunity to touch awakening and see that living peacefully is not a distant goal, but a gift already within your grasp. When we learn to cherish every breath, every moment, we have truly learned how to live. And that is the beginning of a new journey, a journey of peace, freedom, and serenity. My dear friend, when we talk about living lightly, keeping a calm mind, and knowing how to let go of unhappy things, first, we need to understand why our hearts are so often restless. Why does our mind immediately become agitated, like a lake disturbed by a thrown pebble, every time a small thing happens? Why do we easily get angry, sad, worried, or discontent over things that don't go our way? The root of these afflictions, if we look deeply, all begins with the three great fires within the human mind: greed, anger, and ignorance. Tham, San, Si. The Buddha once taught that these three poisons are the root causes that keep sentient beings endlessly trapped in the cycle of suffering. When our hearts are not content, when we crave more, or cling to resentment, envy, or are immersed in ignorance, failing to see the truth, then vexations naturally arise, encompassing our every breath. Try looking at yourself. There are times you feel uneasy just because someone else has a little more than you. There are times you feel unhappy because of an unfavorable word or an unfulfilled dream. The mind that wants more, the mind that is discontent, the mind that refuses to let go, makes our hearts heavy. Life is already short, yet we load so many burdens onto our hearts. It's like someone on a long journey who, instead of carrying only necessities, brings countless unnecessary things, ultimately unable to travel far and becoming exhausted halfway. Afflictions are similar. If we don't know how to let go, we are the ones who cause our own suffering. There's an old story about a poor farmer. He lived in a small village, toiling daily on his barren field. One day, while digging to plant potatoes, he unexpectedly discovered a glittering gold bar underground. Joy overwhelmed him. He trembled, thinking his life would change from that moment on. He held the gold bar, his heart full of gratitude to heaven and earth. But that joy didn't last long. Instead of cherishing the rare gold bar as an unexpected gift, greed arose in his heart. He told himself, if there's one gold bar underground, there must be many more. If I dig deeper, who knows? I might be rich for life. So he no longer thought about farming or resting. Day and night he dug tirelessly. His field, once meant for rice, became a mess of deep holes. But the more he dug, the less he found. In his struggle, the original gold bar accidentally fell into a hole and disappeared. The farmer sank to the ground, despairing, empty-handed. From initial joy, he transformed it into suffering because of his insatiable greed. That story may sound ancient, but if we look closely, we'll see it plays out in our lives every day. Some people have enough food and clothes, but want even more. They have a house, then want a bigger one. They have money, then want much more. Some achieve a little success and immediately want to climb even higher, pushing themselves into a stressful, competitive spiral. When greed arises, we easily forget the value of what we have, and simple happiness suddenly fades. If greed isn't satisfied, anger arises. Anger, resentment towards others. When anger is abundant, ignorance also arises, making us obscure, unable to see what's most important in life. The Buddha once compared the three poisons, greed, anger, ignorance, to three fires, burning the house of each person's soul. If we don't awaken to extinguish them, we will live in a constant state of restless turmoil. But if we can look directly, recognize that afflictions come from within us, not from outside, we will have the opportunity to rediscover inner peace. Outsiders may say unkind things, may behave improperly. But if our hearts are free of greed, anger, and ignorance, those words or actions cannot cause us suffering. It's like a calm lake. A falling branch creates only a gentle ripple that quickly dissipates. But if the lake is already stirred by the wind, even a small pebble will make the water splash. So, how can we live lightly, keeping a calm mind amidst myriad vexations? First, we need to practice letting go, buong sha. Letting go is not about abandonment, but about knowing sufficiency, knowing when to stop, and knowing how to cherish what we have. When you have a satisfying meal, be grateful that you are no longer hungry. When you have a roof over your head to shield you from rain and sun, Smile because you have a place to return to. Don't let greed lead you to forget that simple joy. Next, let's learn to see through things. See through the fact that everything is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. What is gained will be lost. What unites will separate. When we understand this truth, we will cling less and suffer less. A very useful practice is mindful breathing. When you feel restless, stop. Place your hand on your chest and take a deep breath. Feel the breath entering and exiting. Feel life flowing through every cell. Just 1 minute, and you will feel your heart calm down. Because when we return to our breath, we no longer chase after greed, anger, or ignorance. We return to the present, and the present is always the safest place. In addition, try practicing gratitude every day. When you wake up in the morning, just silently tell yourself, "Thank you for being able to breathe, for being alive for another day," and you will find many worries lessen. The ancients had a saying, "Knowing enough is enough. Knowing when to stop brings peace." Indeed, when our hearts know sufficiency, joy is present in every small thing. A clear glass of water becomes happiness. A smile from a loved one warms the whole day. Afflictions have no dwelling place in a heart that knows how to let go and cherish. You see, afflictions do not come from outside. They arise from within our own hearts. When we clearly understand this, we will stop blaming others, stop blaming circumstances, and return to tending our own minds. Like the farmer in the story, if he had known to stop and be content with the gold bar he had, perhaps he would have lived a life of abundance and happiness. But because he didn't know when to stop, he lost everything. That lesson is also a message for each of us. Learn to stop at the right time, release excessive desires to keep your mind at peace. Life is inherently short. Don't let endless desires turn us into eternally suffering beings. Be like a lotus flower rising from the mud, but remaining unsoiled. Live amidst the currents of life, but keep your mind pure. When we know how to let go, how to look deeply, afflictions naturally turn into smoke and clouds. And then we will see that the true happiness is not in how much we have, but in how much we are content with and cherish. So, my friend, from today, try living differently. Whenever vexations arise, ask yourself, is it because of greed, anger, or ignorance? If so, smile, acknowledge it, then breathe deeply to release it. Little by little, each day, you will find your mind lighter, more peaceful. And that is the first step towards a free life, a journey of serenity that each of us deserves to live. In this life, if we hold on to certain things in our hearts, they become like a burden on our shoulders. The further we go, the more tired we become. But with just one act of letting go, we will feel our body and mind lighten, as if liberated. Humans often have a habit of clinging to too much, old sorrows, accusations, things that didn't go their way, even events from long ago. Sometimes we think that by dwelling on and holding on to them, we become stronger. But in reality, it only causes us more suffering. Letting go is not weakness or escape. It is an art of living serenely, an act of great courage to choose peace over vexation. If you observe closely, you'll see that nature always knows how to let go. When autumn arrives, trees readily shed their leaves without clinging or fear, because they trust that spring will bring new shoots. A stream, encountering a boulder, finds a way to flow around it, without anger or obstruction, simply letting go gently to find another path. When dark clouds gather, the sky doesn't grieve. It simply releases the clouds for the wind to carry away, so the sunlight can shine through again. And if we, too, learn from nature, learning to release the things that weigh down our hearts, life will become much more open and lighter. There's a famous Zen story that many have probably heard. Once, two young monks were traveling along a village road. They came to a swift-flowing river. On the riverbank, a young woman was struggling, unsure how to cross, because the water was too deep. One of the monks immediately stepped forward, gently carried the woman across the river, set her down on the other bank, and continued on his way. The other monk felt uneasy in his heart, thinking his brother had violated their precepts, had done something wrong. Throughout the long journey, he held on to that anger and suspicion. When he could no longer bear it, he finally spoke up, accusingly. "Why did you do that, brother? Weren't we taught not to go near women?" The first monk, hearing this, smiled gently and replied, "I put that woman down on the riverbank long ago. Why are you still carrying her in your heart until now?" This short story contains a profound lesson. There are things in life that if we know how to release them as soon as they arise, our hearts won't be heavy. But if we cling to them, we will only tire ourselves out. The monk who carried the woman across the river actually didn't violate his precepts, because his mind was pure. He simply helped someone in difficulty. It was the other monk who was bound, constantly clinging to external forms and holding negative thoughts in his mind, and thus could not find inner peace. This is also true in daily life. Often, things happened long ago, and others have forgotten them, but we still hold on to them, tormenting ourselves with thoughts. Ultimately, it's not others who make us suffer, but we who cause our own suffering. Have you ever spent long nights tossing and turning because of someone's careless remark? Sometimes the speaker doesn't even remember it, but you carry it in your heart, turning it into a wound. Or sometimes a small, unfavorable incident, instead of being let go, you dwell on it until it becomes a heavy mountain on your shoulders. In reality, life is inherently imperfect, and we cannot control everything. But we have the power to choose how we face it. If we let our minds cling, the pain will persist. But if we practice letting go, that pain will dissipate, making way for lightness. The Buddha once taught that among all phenomena, impermanence is unavoidable. This means nothing lasts forever. Joy and sorrow both change with time. If we cling, we are only holding on to the shadow of the past. Ask yourself, does holding a broken vase make it whole again? Does keeping a fallen leaf make it green again? Letting go is not forgetting, but accepting the truth that everything has passed. When we let go, we free our hands to receive new joys, open our hearts to welcome new connections in life. So, what should we do to practice letting go in reality? First, try to start by observing your mind every day. When something troubles you, ask, "Is this worth carrying with me for my entire life?" If the answer is no, then practice releasing it. Next, try a small exercise. Every evening before bed, sit quietly for a few minutes, Breathe in and out slowly, and silently tell yourself, today, I let go of unhappy things. Tomorrow, I will start with a lighter heart. If you practice regularly, you will find your heart clearer, no longer burdened by too much. Additionally, you can try writing down the things that bother you on paper, then gently tear it up, as if sending it away with the wind. This small gesture, though simple, helps the mind feel liberated. Because when we transform the heavy things in our hearts into the action of letting go, the mind will more easily find peace. And don't forget, letting go also requires compassion. When we forgive others, it's not just to lighten their burden, but truly to liberate ourselves. Some ask if letting go means forgetting everything. In fact, letting go is not forgetting, but not letting it control our present. We can still remember, but remember with peace, without suffering. It's like looking at a scar. We remember that it once hurt, but that pain no longer causes us suffering. That is letting go. My dear friend, life cannot always go our way. There will be times when we are misunderstood, when we lose something precious, or encounter things that go against our wishes. But instead of letting it disturb our minds, try to let it flow away like a river heading toward the vast ocean. When we know how to let go, we will see that we still have a wide open blue sky, and many beautiful things await us. Letting go doesn't mean loss. It is precisely the way to reclaim our freedom. If you hold a handful of sand tightly, the more you clench, the more sand slips away. But if you relax your hand, the sand will remain peacefully. Life is similar. The more we cling, the easier it is to lose. Only when we let go can we truly keep what is most precious. And ultimately, the art of living serenely doesn't lie in how much we can control, but in how many burdens we know how to release from our hearts. When we stop clinging, stop holding on to unhappy things, our minds will be clear, like the sky after rain, wide open and tranquil. And in that stillness, we will clearly see that happiness has never been far away. It only waits for us to let go, to step in. So from today, if something weighs heavily on your heart, try once to put it down, just as that monk put the girl down on the riverbank. Then you will realize that you are the one who needs to be released, and your own mind is the place that needs liberation. And only then will you truly embark on the path of living lightly, calmly, and serenely. Sometimes in life, sorrow becomes heavy, not only because of the circumstances we face, but also because we cannot find a place to unburden our hearts. We yearn for someone to listen, someone who won't rush to advise, won't judge, but simply sits there, silently listening. And miraculously, when heard, the suffering in our hearts gradually lightens, like a river unblocked. As the water flows, the murky mud gradually clears. Listening is not just about understanding others, but also a way to heal ourselves. In modern life, we are accustomed to rushing. Everyone carries many pressures and thoughts on their shoulders. Therefore, often we hear, but don't truly listen. A loved one tells a sad story, and we reply with a few words before returning to our phones. A child wants to share something, and we say, later. And so, the distance grows. Sorrow finds no outlet, accumulating into loneliness. The Buddha once taught that suffering is halved when we express it, and someone listens with a compassionate heart. A true listener doesn't just listen with their ears, but with their whole heart, with empathy and understanding. There is a deeply impactful story from Buddhist scriptures. It's about a mother who lost her only child. The pain was so immense that she almost went mad, carrying her child's body everywhere, seeking a cure. She heard that the Buddha was a supremely wise being who could save people from all suffering. So she sought him out, pleading, "Please, give me medicine to bring my child back to life." The Buddha looked at the mother with eyes full of compassion and gently said, "Very well, but I need you to bring me a handful of mustard seeds from a house where no one has ever known loss." The mother immediately rejoiced, carrying her child's body and knocking on every door. But at every house she visited, people shook their heads, telling her they had lost fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, or children. She walked on and on, from one village to another, but couldn't find a single house that had never known loss. At that point, she gradually understood the truth. Birth and death are unavoidable for everyone. The pain of losing a loved one was not hers alone to bear. From that realization, she was able to let go, to accept the impermanent nature of life, and her heart gradually calmed. This story is not just about impermanence. It also reminds us that listening is the door to empathy. If the Buddha had coldly said, "Your child is dead, nothing can be done," then surely that mother would have suffered even more. But he didn't do that. He gave her a journey for her to listen to the suffering of countless others, thereby understanding and accepting her own pain. That is the art of listening and healing. In daily life, perhaps you have experienced such moments. When you are sad, your mind is agitated. But just having someone sit silently and listen, you suddenly feel lighter. They don't necessarily need to offer solutions. They just need to be present with you, listening sincerely, like rain nourishing dry earth. A good listener is like that rain, refreshing the soul that yearns for understanding. Try looking at the people around you. There's a father coming home from work, his heart heavy, but he doesn't know who to share it with. There's a mother bustling with the demands of life, but no shoulder to lean on. There are young people struggling with dreams and pressures, but no one takes the time to listen to their stories. If we can open our hearts to listen to them, not only do we help them ease their sadness, but we also learn empathy ourselves. When we understand others, our minds open up, no longer closed off in our own suffering. And then our own sadness naturally lessens. In mindfulness practice, listening is an important meditation, not just listening to others, but also listening to ourselves. Many people suffer not because of outsiders, but because they have never listened to their own hearts. We constantly chase after work, constantly seek validation, forgetting the wounds within that are crying out for attention. If one evening you sit quietly, breathe deeply, and truly ask yourself, what does my heart need? What sadness within me is waiting to be healed? You will be surprised to realize that merely listening to yourself is already a medicine. When listening, we need to practice silence and let go of preconceptions. Often we listen with a mind full of judgments, wanting to interject advice, wanting to impose our views. But true listening is opening a space in the heart for the other person's voice to resonate fully, like an open sky for clouds to drift through, like still water reflecting the moon. When we listen without interruption, the speaker feels respected, understood. And in that connection, both sides are healed. My dear friend, to cultivate the ability to listen, you can practice with small steps. Try to spend a few minutes each day truly listening to someone in your family, without rushing, without interrupting, just listening. Try to sit with your children and listen to them tell stories about school or friends. Try talking with your parents, or letting them speak about old age, about their worries. And don't forget to listen to yourself through your breath, through moments of stillness. These moments, though small, have immense healing power. Ultimately, the art of listening is the art of sowing seeds of love. When we listen with empathy, we are sowing a seed of comfort in another's heart. That seed will blossom into trust, helping them feel they are not alone. And in that process of sowing, we ourselves are refreshed, our hearts lightened, just like the mother in the story who sought mustard seeds. Through her journey of searching and listening to the suffering of countless others, she ultimately found healing for herself. So, my friend, if you are suffering today, try listening to someone. When you open your heart to others, you will realize your own sorrow is no longer so heavy. And if someone comes to you in despair, offer them your ears and a silent heart. Because sometimes that is the greatest gift we can give. Listening not only brings peace to others, but also brings us closer to inner calm and freedom of spirit. Perhaps everyone in life has experienced moments of exhaustion so profound that they just wanted to let go of everything. Sometimes it's the loss of a loved one, sometimes a broken relationship, or perhaps accumulated failures at work that exhaust us. These hurts are like deep scratches etched into the soul. Some wounds are fresh, others old, but they occasionally sting when touched. Humans are inherently prone to suffering, but growth isn't about never stumbling. It's about knowing how to get back up after each fall, wiping away tears, and continuing to move forward. It is the strength of resilience that truly creates the most precious quality of a human life. There is a saying in the Dhammapada, conquering 1,000 armies is not as good as conquering oneself. Indeed, there are battles we cannot see with our eyes, yet they are fiercer than any war. These are the battles within the mind. When hurt, many people choose to hide, flee, or build a hard shell so no one can touch them. But there are also those who dare to face it, to embrace their wounds, to heal them, and transform them into a beautiful part of life. They understand that suffering is not an end, but just a chapter in the journey of growth. There's a story from Japan that offers a profound lesson on how to perceive injury. Long ago, a general had a precious ceramic vase that unfortunately fell and broke. He took the vase to potters, hoping they could repair it. But instead of joining the pieces with glue or hiding the cracks, one artisan did something unusual. He used gold to mend the broken fragments. And then something remarkable happened. The repaired vase was no longer perfectly intact as before, but it became more beautiful, more unique, precisely because the golden veins created a new soul for it. From then on, this art was called kintsugi, the art of mending pottery with gold. That story is a beautiful metaphor for human life. We are also like that ceramic vase, not immune to cracks and breaks from life's events and suffering. But if we know how to use resilience, compassion, and wisdom to mend them, those wounds become the very marks that create our unique beauty. Injury doesn't diminish us. Rather, it is an opportunity for us to grow, for our hearts to become deeper and more filled with love. In everyday life, I once met an elderly farmer. He recounted that in his youth, he borrowed money for farming. But a storm hit, his crops failed, and debts piled up. At times, he was so desperate, he wanted to leave the village forever. But then, seeing his wife and children still trusting and standing by him, he decided to rise again. He changed his farming methods, learned new techniques, and gradually paid off all his debts. Now, in his old age, he says that if it weren't for those hardships, he would never have fully understood the value of resilience and gratitude. His wounds didn't disappear. They still lie in his memory. But now, they shine like golden veins in his soul. You see, each time we suffer is like a crack appearing in the vase within us. If we only deny or hide it, those cracks can easily shatter further. But if we accept it and use resilience to mend it, it is precisely what will make us more radiant. When we learn to smile amidst suffering, that is when we truly grow. The Buddha taught about impermanence. Everything changes, and suffering will also change. The important thing is not to run from injury, but how we face and transform it. In practice, you can start by sitting still, breathing deeply, and observing your pain like a friend. Don't hate it. Don't chase it away. Tell yourself, I know you are there. I acknowledge your existence. Once we recognize the wound, we can then seek to heal it. Let each breath be a soothing touch, each smile a golden streak, mending the soul. Just like the art of kintsugi, we can transform the cracks in our lives into precious lines. Think about a time you stumbled in the past. Thanks to it, you learned patience, learned compassion for others, or simply learned how to get back up. So, didn't that wound give you new strength? Those who have experienced suffering often know how to love more because they deeply understand the feeling of being hurt, and that is the gift that cracks bring. If today you are going through a difficult period, believe that it is not the end. The wound you carry, no matter how deep, can become a unique beauty if you are resilient enough. Don't hastily compare yourself to others, because like a kintsugi vase, each golden crack is a unique story, a value that is not replicated. Learn to love yourself more, because you deserve to be cherished, even if you have been broken. In reality, there are many ways to cultivate resilience. You can practice mindfulness meditation to keep your mind still and steady amidst storms. You can write down the things that cause you pain to release them from the endless loop in your head. You can also share with a loved one to be supported by listening and empathy. Most importantly, never view a wound as a burden, but rather as an opportunity to become a deeper and more compassionate version of yourself. My dear friend, life is inherently impermanent. No one can live without being hurt. But it is precisely these hurts that teach us how to love, how to cherish every moment, how to smile in adversity. Like a lotus rising from the mud, the muddier it gets, the purer its fragrance. Humans, too, can shine brighter after falling. Believe that you have enough strength to mend the cracks in your heart, transforming them into radiant, golden lines. And then you will see that happiness is not found in avoiding suffering, but in knowing how to embrace and transform it with a resilient and free heart. Sometimes we wonder why our hearts feel so heavy. On some days, we look at others and see them as more successful, happier, having warmer families, or smoother careers. And that's when comparison arises within us. The more we compare, the more we feel inferior and unhappy, as if our lives lack everything. Sometimes we get caught in a spiral of calculations, vying for every little advantage, scrambling for every opportunity, constantly worrying about gains and losses. The more we calculate, the more tired our minds become. The more we compare, the sadder our hearts grow. Often, we exhaust ourselves, not because our circumstances are too difficult, but precisely because of this relentless pursuit of advantage and comparison in our minds. The Buddha once said, "No one can bring you peace but yourself." Indeed, if we constantly look at others, it's like forgetting the path we are on. It's like someone walking on a lush, green path who, instead of enjoying the roadside flowers, keeps looking up at someone else's distant garden and feels resentment. Comparison never ends, because out there will always be someone more talented, richer, or luckier than us. Likewise, calculations never cease, for the more we accumulate and cling, the more we fear losing. Only when we learn to be content with ourselves and live fully in the present moment can we feel the lightness that has always been there. I want to tell you a very beautiful story. In a village, there lived a water carrier. Every day, he used his shoulders to carry 2 pots to the stream, filled them with water, and carried them home. One pot was perfect and intact, while the other had a small crack. Each time he carried them back, the cracked pot would only hold half the amount of water. The rest leaked along the way. The cracked pot was very sad, feeling useless and inferior compared to the perfect pot. One day, it said to the water carrier, "I am so ashamed because I am cracked. Every day, I make you work hard without being as complete as that other pot." The water carrier smiled kindly and replied, "Did you notice? Along the path I carry you, wildflowers bloom everywhere on both sides of the road. It's because of the water leaking from you that those flowers are watered, making the path so vibrant and beautiful today. You may not carry a full load of water like the other pot, but you bring flowers to life." You see, all of us are like those 2 pots. Some are intact, while others carry cracks. But that doesn't mean those who are cracked are useless. Everyone has their own unique value, their own unique role that only they can bring to life. If it kept comparing itself, the cracked pot would only see its sadness. But when it realized that thanks to it, flowers bloomed along the path, it understood that it was just as valuable as anyone else. In life, too, many people toil and suffer because they constantly look at others' strengths and then criticize their own weaknesses. A village mother sees her wealthy neighbor with successful children and suddenly feels inferior. Then, sadly, thinks she is inadequate. But if she stops and looks at her own small home, where there are simple meals filled with laughter and children who are polite and love each other, she will see that her value is second to none. For true happiness is not in having more than others, but in knowing how to cherish what we have. The ancients had a saying, Tri tuk thung lak, meaning knowing contentment brings ut to constant joy. If our hearts are always comparing, no matter how much we have, we will still feel a lack. But if we know how to be content, even a small flower can warm our hearts. And when we reduce our calculations and striving, we will have more space for love and compassion. When we give, strangely enough, life becomes lighter and fuller. You can try a very simple method. Whenever you find yourself comparing yourself to others, turn back to look at yourself, take a deep breath, and ask, what in this present moment makes me most grateful? It could be a simple but sufficient meal. It could be the smile of a loved one. It could be the moment you are still able to breathe and listen to the birds outside your window. These small things are the flowers blooming along the path that we often inadvertently overlook. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once reminded us that the one who knows contentment is the richest person. For true wealth is not accumulating many possessions, but a mind at peace, no longer tormented by greed and comparison. When you compare less, you will find your mind opens up, your heart light as the wind. Everything you see seems beautiful, and everywhere you walk feels peaceful. My dear friend, if today you are still caught up in comparisons and calculations, remember the image of the two pots. Remember that everyone has a unique value. Don't make yourself suffer by not being like anyone else, because your unique difference is the gift that life needs. When you learn to let go of comparisons and calculations, you will find your heart wide open. And happiness is not far away, but waiting in every present moment. Finally, believe that life is inherently impermanent. All gains and losses, victories and defeats will also pass like an evening cloud. What remains are the flowers you have sown along your path. Don't let comparison steal your joy. Don't let calculations cloud your heart. Choose to be yourself. Choose to sow flowers with every step so that each day you live becomes a song of peace and freedom. Sometimes we wonder why, in the same circumstances, some people can still smile peacefully while we feel our hearts heavy. On some mornings, we wake up with countless anxieties still unresolved, an unpaid bill, a hurtful comment, an unfulfilled plan. All these thoughts crowd our minds, leaving us agitated. And then we look outside and see the scenery also covered in a gloomy hue. The birdsong no longer sounds clear, and the morning sun isn't enough to warm our hearts. At that moment, we forget a simple truth. The scenery is inherently indifferent. It's only when our minds are disturbed that everything around us becomes unsettling. The ancients used to say, appearance arises from the mind. When our hearts are calm, a smile naturally graces our lips, and the inner light shines through, making our faces gentle and the surroundings more peaceful. A smile not only soothes others, but is also a mirror, reflecting our own soul. If our hearts are full of worries, even if we force a smile, it will only be strained. But when the mind is empty, quiet, and peaceful, a smile will naturally radiate, like a lotus blossoming from mud, yet emitting a pure fragrance. There's a story from a Zen monastery I'm eager to share with you. Long ago, A student sought a Zen master for spiritual guidance. The student was very intelligent, had read many books, accumulated a great deal of knowledge, and believed that with a few more instructions, he could achieve enlightenment. When he met the Zen master, he sat down and eloquently recounted everything he knew, the doctrines he had read, the meditation practices he had tried. The master listened in silence, then picked up a teapot and poured tea into the student's cup. The cup filled, but the master kept pouring, causing the tea to overflow onto the table. The student, surprised, quickly said, "Master, the cup is full. Please don't pour any more." The Zen master smiled and replied, "Your mind is also like this teacup, overflowing with chaotic thoughts and preconceptions. If you don't empty it, how can the teachings seep in?" The story sounds simple, but contains a profound lesson. Our minds are often like that overflowing teacup. They are full of thoughts of winning and losing, sadness and anger, worries and anxieties, leaving no space for peace to reside. When the mind is crowded, it's difficult to receive joy, difficult to feel light. Only when we know how to empty our hearts, to put down our worries, can we see true happiness smiling back at us. In daily life, sometimes even very small things are enough to annoy us. A worker returns home after a hard day, enters the house, sees his child's toys scattered everywhere, and immediately frowns and scolds. But if that day he had maintained a slow breath, released his anger, and looked at his child with loving eyes, perhaps instead of yelling, he would have knelt down to help clean up with his child, and their small home would have been filled with laughter. It's still the same room, still the same toys, but a calm mind makes the scene peaceful. An agitated mind makes the scene chaotic. The Buddha once taught, when the mind is tranquil, happiness is present. That saying is not some distant concept, but very real in everyday life. Try sitting down once, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and releasing it slowly. You will feel all the tension in your chest gradually subside. The stream of thoughts will also slow down, and in that moment, you will realize that peace has never left. We just forgot about it. Keeping a peaceful mind doesn't mean life will be free of difficulties, but that amidst difficulties, our hearts are still spacious enough to smile. Like a still lake reflecting the clouds and sky, if our minds are undisturbed, any scene reflected in it will appear clear. A farmer goes to the field on a scorching hot day, sweat dripping down. If he only thinks of the hard work, he will feel utterly miserable. But if he sees the tender green rice shoots growing each day and thinks of a warm family meal, then amidst the hardship, there is still joy. Peace or restlessness doesn't lie in circumstances, but in how our minds perceive them. To keep a peaceful mind, we can start by practicing small things. When someone says something unpleasant, instead of reacting immediately, try taking a deep breath, smiling to yourself, and then responding. When work piles up, instead of getting flustered, stop for a few minutes, close your eyes, relax your shoulders, and let your body rest. When the mind is calm, everything looks clearer. Just as when the water in a lake settles, we can see the bottom clearly. Keeping a peaceful mind also means knowing how to let go of unnecessary things. Often, we suffer not from lack, but from holding on to too much. We dwell on past events and constantly worry about future ones. As a result, the present moment is lost, and happiness disappears. If we can learn to slow down, stop useless thinking, and fully immerse ourselves in each moment, then serenity will naturally appear. My dear friend, human life is inherently impermanent. All gains and losses, all successes and failures, are like clouds drifting across the sky. What remains is the mind, how we have lived each day. If the mind is agitated, every scene becomes a storm. If the mind is peaceful, even in adversity, we can still find the light of dawn. So, practice keeping your heart empty and still, like an empty teacup, so that every drop of peace can be poured in to nourish your daily life. And then, when you smile with that peace, you will see that happiness is not far away at all. It is right there in your breath, in every step, in every compassionate glance. When the mind is peaceful, the environment is peaceful, and happiness will bloom in your heart, spreading its gentle fragrance everywhere. In the journey of life, each of us has faced sorrows and challenges that make our hearts ache, as if a tiny grain of sand has entered. That grain of sand could be a criticism, a failure, a broken relationship, or the constant worries about food, clothing, and money. Initially, we feel only pain, discomfort, and injustice. We blame life, blame others, and even blame ourselves. But then, just like the law of nature, if we have enough patience and equanimity to embrace that pain, it can gradually transform into a shining pearl in our soul. Imagine a tiny oyster in the vast ocean. One day, the waves carry a rough grain of sand into its body. The sand stings and irritates it daily. If the oyster only knew to complain and resist, it would likely wither in agony. But instead, it chooses to embrace the sand, covering it with shimmering nacre. Year after year, from that pain, a radiant pearl gradually forms. The oyster doesn't drive away adversity. It silently transforms it into a treasure. This story is not just a beautiful metaphor, but also a truth of human life. Sometimes, adversity itself is the seed for our growth. If we are patient, persistent, and live with equanimity, the very pains that once brought us down become precious pearls in our soul. A pearl cannot form without sand, just as humans cannot grow without facing suffering. However, alongside the patient oyster, we also see the image of a wild horse. A horse is inherently strong, free, and loves to run across vast pastures. But when captured, it struggles, rages, bites, and charges into its enclosure until it collapses from exhaustion and dies. It chooses to react with fierce resistance, and that very rage kills it. Similarly, as humans, if we only rage against adversity, if we only struggle with resentment, the more we struggle, the more tired we become, and ultimately, we might exhaust ourselves. You see, these two contrasting images from nature offer us a profound lesson. The oyster chooses equanimity and patience, turning adversity into a pearl. The wild horse chooses rage and resistance only to be exhausted. Life is also like this. Difficulties spare no one, but our attitude determines our fate. One who knows equanimity will gradually dissolve pain. One who harbors anger will lose themselves. In everyday life, we encounter many simple examples, such as a poor farmer whose rice crops died from drought during a lean year. Initially, he was heartbroken because his entire family depended on that harvest. But instead of blaming heaven and earth, he calmly gathered every dry rice stalk, fed them to his cows, and then dedicated himself to planting potatoes and corn for food. His calm and patient outlook helped his family overcome a lean year. And then, the next season, when the rain and wind were favorable, he had a bountiful harvest. If that year he had only complained, he probably wouldn't have had the strength to sow seeds for the next season. Or a factory worker who was unjustly blamed by his boss for a mistake he didn't make. He silently accepted the criticism, continued to work diligently without expressing anger or reacting harshly. Gradually, everyone realized he wasn't the one at fault, and his equanimity earned him more respect. If he had exploded in anger at that moment, it would likely have only complicated things and cost him the opportunity to prove himself through action. Patience is not weakness, and equanimity is not cowardice. It is inner strength. It is the wisdom to understand that everything eventually dissipates. The Buddha once taught that all suffering has a cause and also a path to its cessation. That teaching reminds us that suffering is also just a grain of sand, and we have the power to choose our attitude towards it. If we know compassion, know how to let go, then that grain of sand will become a pearl in our soul. To cultivate equanimity, you can start with your breath. When your mind is stormy, stop. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out slowly to feel life still present in every moment. When someone hurts you, remember that their words are also just like a grain of sand. You can choose to embrace them with compassion in your heart instead of letting them rub and make you bleed. When life presents challenges, view them as an opportunity for training, like the ocean sending a grain of sand into an oyster's body, so that one day you will look back and see you have a shining pearl of your own. My dear friend, remember that no pearl is born in peace, and no mature human has ever gone through a storm unscathed. What matters is how you choose to face it. Equanimity does not diminish our strength. On the contrary, it gives us profound strength to endure through adversity. Still, water can reflect the sky. A peaceful mind can transform suffering. Ultimately, when you look back on your journey, you will see that every pain, every challenge you have experienced was not truly meant to bring you down, but to teach you something. Just like that grain of sand, initially a tiny discomfort, but when nurtured with patience and equanimity, it becomes a precious pearl. And then you will understand a simple truth. Happiness is not in what life brings us, but in how we cultivate our attitude toward life. If possible, from today, try to live a little slower, a little more calmly, a little more patiently. Let every adversity become an opportunity. Let every pain become a pearl, and let yourself become a person shining brightly from within. And then, in every step, every breath, you will see that happiness is actually very near. It exists right when you choose to keep your mind still, like an oyster embracing a grain of sand to form a pearl, like a still lake reflecting the entire sky. That is the art of living lightly, keeping a calm mind, and knowing how to forget unhappy things to become a person who truly knows how to live. Have you ever wondered why in a modern world where everything happens so quickly, people are increasingly tired, stressed, and feel a lack of happiness? We race against time, against work, against unachieved goals, rarely pausing to truly live. We rush through meals just to fill our stomachs, not to nourish our body and mind. We hurry past roads filled with blooming flowers, but our eyes are glued to phone screens. We breathe, but our breaths are shallow and hurried, not deep enough to soothe a weary soul. And this very rush causes us to lose something very precious: happiness in every ordinary moment. There's an art of living that great sages throughout history have passed down. Living slowly. Not slow in the sense of being stagnant or unprogressive, but slow to see clearly, to feel deeply, to be fully present in every small detail. When we eat slowly, we truly know we are eating. When we breathe slowly, we realize that breath is a priceless gift. When we walk slowly, we see how beautiful the ground beneath our feet truly is. Living slowly means returning to the present, dwelling fully in each moment. In the Buddha's teachings, mindfulness is the breath of awakening. He taught, when walking, know that you are walking. When standing, know that you are standing. When eating, know that you are eating. It sounds so simple, but ask yourself, in this busy life, how many times have you eaten while your mind was thinking about a meeting, a sorrow, or an unfinished project? How many times have you walked on a village road, fragrant with ripe rice, yet your mind was filled with worries about tomorrow? We live, but we forget that we are living. That's why happiness, which seems so distant, is actually just waiting for us to return to it in every breath. I want to tell you a simple yet profound story from Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. He once taught his students the practice of mindful eating. When sitting before a warm bowl of rice, he would smile and say, "When eating, just eat. No rushing, no talking while eating. No thinking while eating." Each pearly white grain of rice was chewed slowly, savoring its sweet flavor, and in each mouthful was a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the rain and sun, for the farmer, for Mother Earth, who nourished it. When practiced this way, an ordinary bowl of rice becomes a miracle that nourishes both body and mind. The eater feels light and happy, and the meal transforms into a profound meditation. This image makes us realize that happiness doesn't need to be sought far away. We just need to be truly present in the small, everyday things. A deep breath, a gentle smile, a relaxed step are enough to create a peaceful day. An old farmer once recounted that after many years of arduous work, he realized his true joy was not in how much rice he sold, but in walking through the fields each morning, listening to the birds sing and watching the sunrise. These moments, seemingly small, were the genuine happiness that money couldn't buy. You can try a simple practice today. When you hold a glass of water, don't drink it immediately. Look closely at the clear water. Feel its refreshing coolness. Then take small sips. When walking on the sidewalk, instead of scrolling through your phone, try looking up at the sky, taking a deep breath, and realizing that you are alive. Living slowly doesn't waste time. On the contrary, it makes time more meaningful. You see, happiness isn't about having a lot or a little. It's not about how much wealth or fame we possess, but about whether we truly live fully in the present moment. A wealthy person can sit in a luxurious house, but still feel restless because their mind is constantly worrying about tomorrow. An ordinary person might only eat a simple meal of vegetables and tofu, but if eaten mindfully and with gratitude, their happiness will be complete and abundant. In meditation, impermanence is often mentioned. Everything in this world passes very quickly. Flowers bloom then wither. Day turns into night. Youth eventually fades. If we live in a hurry, always rushing forward, we might look back one day and realize we've missed too many beautiful things. A loved one's handhold, an afternoon sitting on the porch watching the rain fall, a child's innocent smile from next door. All these are infinitely precious. Living slowly is about not missing the simple gifts that life bestows. My dear friend, try to pause for a moment. Breathe in, and know that you are breathing in. Breathe out, and know that you are breathing out. In that moment, you can feel your heart still beating, life still present. You don't need much. Just dwelling in your breath, you have touched happiness. This is the awakening that spiritual masters have reiterated. Happiness is right here, in every breath, in every step, in every drop of water. And when you cultivate the habit of living slowly, you will find life is no longer so heavy. Unhappy things will pass more gently. Sorrows will no longer linger. Because you will have learned how to return to the present to nourish your mind. With wholeness, a serene soul will not be easily carried away by storms, just as a still lake can reflect the entire sky. Therefore, the profound lesson of living slowly is learning to cherish every moment you have. Don't wait until you lose something to feel regret. Don't wait for someday to allow yourself to be happy. Right now, as you take a deep breath, as you sip a warm cup of tea, as you sit quietly listening to the wind, that is already happiness. And you will realize a simple but precious truth. Happiness is not a distant destination, but the path we are walking. It is every slow step, every fresh breath, every smile shining from within. When you live this way, you not only find peace for yourself, but also spread peace to those around you. Perhaps everyone in life has been hurt by someone else's words or actions at some point. Some scratches are very small, fleeting, and then they disappear. But there are also wounds that run deep in the heart, leaving persistent, unceasing resentment. Sometimes we think that if we hold on to that anger, we will be stronger. We won't let anyone trample on our self-respect. But the longer we hold on, the heavier we feel. Hatred is like a stone placed in the heart. The longer we cling, the more painful it becomes. The tighter we hold, the more we suffer. Holding on to hatred is truly like imprisoning ourselves in a jail of our own making. There's a quote from Buddhist scriptures that I deeply cherish. Hatred does not cease by hatred. By love alone does it cease. This is an eternal law. This means if someone hurts us and we retaliate with hatred, that cycle will never end. Only when we open our hearts to forgive does that resentment dissipate. Forgiveness is not about completely forgetting everything, nor is it accepting that the other person was right. Forgiveness is choosing a path of peace for ourselves. It is not allowing the past to bind our souls any longer. Others may have hurt us, but if we continue to harbor resentment, we are the ones who continue to cause our own suffering. The Buddhist Dharma Response channel wants to tell you a truly moving story. There was a man who was falsely accused and imprisoned for many years. His life seemed to have lost everything: freedom, family, youth. That injustice was enough to turn him into a bitter, resentful person for life. But when the day of his release came, he smiled serenely. People asked him if he hated those who had wronged him. He replied, "If I still hated, it would mean I am still imprisoned. They stole many years of my life. I cannot let them steal the rest of it through the very hatred within me." That answer truly brings tears to many, because forgiveness, in that case, was no longer a simple act, but a great liberation. He chose to let go, to be free. That story reminds us that forgiveness is not for others, but for ourselves. When we forgive, we are no longer chained by anger. When we forgive, we feel lighter. Our steps become freer. Our smiles more genuine. The person who hurt us may not have repented, but forgiveness helps us no longer be controlled by them. Forgiveness is like putting down a burden we have carried for too long, so we can continue moving forward with a free spirit. In everyday life, we can also find many simple stories of forgiveness. Like a poor mother, when her son made the mistake of stealing, instead of angrily scolding him, she embraced him and said, "If you've made a mistake, fix it. Mother still loves you." That embrace was forgiveness. Or like the village farmer who was unjustly cursed by his neighbor. Instead of arguing, he just smiled and said, "They are suffering. That's why they're lashing out." That smile was forgiveness. Forgiveness does not make us weak. On the contrary, it makes our souls vast and stronger. Try turning inward and looking at yourself. How many times at night have you lain awake, recalling a hurtful word? How many days have you carried a heavy heart because you couldn't let go of resentment? In such moments, you feel like you are living in a cramped, suffocating, breathless room. And when we learn to forgive, that room bursts open and light floods in. We breathe the fresh air of freedom. Forgiveness is liberating ourselves from invisible shackles. So, how do we learn to forgive? First, we need to accept that humans are imperfect. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes. Everyone sometimes hurts others, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. And we ourselves, in our lives, have surely caused someone sadness. When we understand that anyone can stumble, our hearts naturally soften, no longer as harsh as before. Next, try to look deeply into the other person's pain. A crude, aggressive person is often someone who is suffering deeply within. They yell, they cause harm. In reality, they are just expressing unhealed wounds. When we see their suffering, our hearts are filled with empathy, and forgiveness becomes easier. An effective practice is mindful contemplation in meditation. Sit quietly, breathe in deeply, and out slowly. Then silently affirm, "I know I am still angry, but I choose to let go. I know I am hurting, but I want to heal." As the breath flows in and out, we will feel our emotions calm. Forgiveness doesn't necessarily happen immediately, but little by little, with each breath, our minds will open wider, becoming more compassionate. Some say that forgiveness is a gift we give to others, but in reality, forgiveness is first and foremost a gift we give to ourselves. When we forgive, we are no longer bound by the past. we live fully in the present. Forgiveness doesn't erase memories, but it erases the controlling power of those memories. And you see, hatred is like a burning fire that consumes the one who carries it. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is like a cool stream, soothing the soul and nurturing love. Forgiveness doesn't make us lose anything. On the contrary, it grants us a vast space of freedom, where the heart can beat peacefully, where the soul can blossom into a smile. Therefore, the greatest lesson of forgiveness is learning to love ourselves. To love by not allowing ourselves to live forever in the prison of hatred. To love by opening our hearts to let the light of compassion enter. And when we forgive, we also sow seeds of peace for this world. For a heart that knows forgiveness will spread peace to those around it. My dear friend, if you are still carrying resentment in your heart today, try breathing slowly, closing your eyes, and silently saying, "I forgive, so I can be at peace." Then, one day, you will feel light as a drifting cloud, free as a bird in the sky. Forgiveness is self-liberation. Forgiveness is the path that leads us back to true happiness. In the journey of life, perhaps you have often asked yourself why you have to face unwanted adversities, why others seem luckier than you, and why all your efforts still don't yield the desired results. These questions weigh heavily on one's heart, as if swimming against a strong current, only to become more exhausted the more one struggles. It is in such moments that the Buddha's teaching gently resonates like a breeze. To those without affinity, countless words are useless. To those with affinity, a single glance brings awakening. The meaning of tui duyen, dependent origination, living in accordance with conditions, begins to illuminate like a lamp lighting up the night. Tui duyen is not about giving up, surrendering to fate, or letting life just carry you along. Tui duyen is wakefulness, knowing clearly how to welcome what comes with a calm heart, and how to smile and let go of what departs. When we know how to live according to conditions, tui duyen, we no longer suffer over things beyond our control. Like a bird soaring in the vast sky, it cannot change the wind's direction, but it can spread its wings to follow the wind and fly further. Humans are the same. We cannot change all circumstances, but we can change how we perceive them. I once heard a small story from a village that might help you understand the meaning of tui duyen better. There was a farmer who grew rice. That season, there was little rain, and his fields were cracked. He worried daily. His neighbor asked him why he wasn't sad or complaining. But the farmer just smiled and said, "If heaven gives rain, the rice will be good. If heaven doesn't give rain, I'll plant vegetables and potatoes. I can't force the rain or the wind. I can only act in a way that my heart doesn't suffer." Many thought he was naive, but it was thanks to his tui duyen mindset that he was always at peace, whether the rice was good or bad, whether it was scorching hot or rainy. Because he understood that what he could control was the serenity in his heart, not the rain or sunshine outside. And don't you see, the lotus flower is the most wonderful testament to the spirit of tui duyen. The lotus doesn't choose where to bloom, nor does it demand clear, pristine ponds. It still rises from the muddy depths, still emits a pure fragrance, and displays its noble beauty. The lotus lives according to conditions, adapting to what is available, yet it doesn't allow the mud to contaminate its pure essence. A person who knows Tui Duyen is also like this. Living amidst life's many changes, they still maintain a bright and pure soul, not letting circumstances sweep them away. Often, we suffer because we want everything to go our way. We want others to love us exactly as we expect, want work to proceed smoothly as we planned, want life to follow the path we have drawn. But life is inherently impermanent, like a river constantly flowing, like clouds gathering and dispersing. The more we try to force things, the more we encounter disappointment. Conversely, if we know Tui Duyen, our hearts will lighten. When loved ones come, we cherish them. When they leave, we smile and give thanks for a connection that has passed. When work is favorable, we give our best effort. When we encounter failure, we see it as a lesson for growth. The Buddha once taught that Tui Duyen does not mean being passive, but being actively awakened in every situation. A person who lives according to conditions will not sit idly waiting, nor will they chase after things forcefully. They sow seeds when spring arrives, care for them daily, and then, depending on the rain and sun, accept the outcome. If it's a good harvest, they are joyful. If it's a poor harvest, they remain peaceful, because they understand that sowing the seeds is their task, but how the fruits turn out depends on conditions. It is this attitude that brings Amsoant inner freedom, as we are not entirely dependent on the outcome. To live in such a way, first, we need to learn to breathe and recognize the desires in our hearts. When something unfavorable happens, instead of complaining, we can breathe in and ask, is this truly within my ability to change? If not, how can I accept it so my heart suffers less? Each mindful breath will help us release useless clinging. Additionally, we can practice meditation on impermanence. When we contemplate that everything in this world changes, we will no longer cling to a fixed outcome, but learn to adapt and move forward. Try to imagine this. Every morning you wake up, instead of worrying about what's to come, you simply smile gently and tell yourself, today I will live according to conditions. Whomever I meet, I will cherish. Whatever I do, I will give my all. The rest, I will leave to the winds of heaven to decide. Naturally, you will feel lighter, less stressed, and a new day will become full of energy. Because inner peace is not in whether life is favorable or not, but in our Tui Duyen attitude toward all circumstances. Ultimately, the great lesson we realize is that living Tui Duyen does not mean abandoning dreams or ceasing effort, but rather that we sow with all our heart, and then serenely accept the outcome in whatever form it comes. Like the lotus, it doesn't wait for clean soil to dare to bloom, but blossoms radiantly right in the mud. When people know how to adapt to conditions and live accordingly, their hearts will no longer suffer. For in every adversity, a seed of enlightenment is hidden. In every patch of mud, a pure lotus can be nurtured. My dear friend, from today, try practicing Tui Duyen, living. Let every joy and sorrow, every meeting and parting, become a part of your spiritual journey. Then you will see that this life, whether in mud or sunshine, is a beautiful Dharma affinity for your soul to grow serenely and shine. Sometimes, amidst the hurried pace of life, we often ask ourselves what true happiness really is. Is it a grand house, a bulging bank account, or luxurious trips to exotic lands? But then, upon reflection, we realize that sometimes just a smile from a loved one, a warm meal with family, or a timely word of encouragement is enough to bring peace to our hearts. It turns out that simple happiness carries a healing power that we sometimes spend our whole lives searching for in grand, distant things, unaware that it silently exists all around us. In the teachings of the Buddha, he spoke of inner peace, saying that true happiness does not depend on external material possessions, but blossoms from wakefulness and peace within the soul. A person can be immensely wealthy, but still suffer because their greed is insatiable. Conversely, some people have nothing but a humble home and simple meals of vegetables and tofu, yet they live a life of complete happiness. This is because their hearts are filled with love, gratitude, and inner peace. When the mind is fulfilled, poverty or wealth is no longer the measure. For happiness is not found in a wallet, but in the tranquility within the heart. I once heard a story about a poor father in a village. He didn't have much wealth, living with his wife and children in a small house with bamboo walls and a thatched roof. Their daily meals were just a plate of boiled vegetables, a little sesame salt, and sometimes a few dried fish. Yet that house was always full of laughter. The father often told stories to his children while they ate, teaching them to be grateful for what they had, and reminding them that poverty was not as frightening as allowing their hearts to lose their purity. The children listened, laughed, and still felt warm and content. As time passed, the children grew up and went their separate ways. One of them became very successful, living in a prosperous city. Although he could sit in luxurious restaurants and eat elaborate dishes, his heart still longed for the simple vegetable and tofu meals he shared with his parents each year. He once confessed that the happiest moments of his life were not at lavish banquets, but back when his whole family sat around a humble meal and everyone's heart was full of joy. Indeed, that poor meal became the richest memory of his life. Have you ever wondered why sometimes, in times of scarcity, we find happiness more easily than when we have plenty? This is because when we have fewer conditions, we learn to cherish every small bit. A new shirt brings joy. A word of praise warms the heart. A handhold brings inner peace. But when we have too much, our hearts easily become prone to comparison, calculation, and dissatisfaction. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is craving. One who knows when to stop and is content with what they have finds peace in the present moment. Where is simple happiness? It's not far away. It could be when you sip a warm cup of tea on a peaceful morning, listening to the birds chirp on the roof. It could be when you return home after a tiring day and see the light in your small house still on, waiting for you. It could also be the moment you chat with a long-lost friend, laughing heartily as if you had never been apart. That is simple, genuine happiness. To touch that happiness, you don't need to chase after too many out-of-reach goals. Instead, try practicing mindfulness in every moment. When eating a meal, truly look at it, chew slowly, and be grateful to the earth and sky, the farmer, and the hands that prepared it. When talking with loved ones, put your phone down and truly listen with your whole heart. When walking under trees, feel the scent of the earth, the rustling leaves, and the gentle breeze on your skin. These seemingly small things bring us back to the present, where happiness always resides. Someone once asked, "How can one find happiness in a life full of suffering?" And the answer was surprisingly simple. Stop, take a deep breath, and look around you. You still have legs to walk, eyes to see the blue sky, a home to return to, and perhaps someone who quietly loves you. So you already have far more precious things than you think. Recognizing the value of these simple things is the key to unlocking the door to happiness. My dear friend, life is inherently impermanent. All wealth, fame, or status will eventually pass like clouds drifting by. But if you know how to preserve and cherish every moment of love, every moment of peace, you will find yourself living in true richness. Like that poor father with his simple vegetable and tofu meals, he didn't leave his children great material wealth, but he gave them a precious inheritance, the lesson of simple happiness. And that lesson will stay with them for life. So, from today, try to look at life with eyes of gratitude. Don't seek happiness in distant things, but find it in every ordinary moment. Smile when you see the early morning sun. Feel fortunate when someone asks about you, and be happy when you can still share a meal with those you love. Then, you will see that happiness is not far away, but always present in every simple thing around you. And when we understand the value of simple happiness, we will no longer chase after elusive illusions, no longer care about gains and losses. We will simply live fully and mindfully in every moment, allowing happiness to blossom right in the present. Have you noticed that in the rhythm of modern life, we often rush ceaselessly, absorbed